Hello, welcome to my channel where I talk all things photography. Or at least I will talk all things photography because this is my first video for this channel. In this video, I'm going to talk specifically about taking photos in the fog. So this morning, I woke up early and headed to my local park, Henderson Park, here in Tucker, Georgia, and I got there about 30 minutes after sunrise. It was very foggy out, and I noticed the first few photographs that I took as I was walking around a lake were really washed out, I think because the fog was so close to the lake. Over the next hour or so, as the fog started to rise, I was able to get some more photos. I was really hoping to capture at least some of the fog. You could see it in some of the trees that I took. But for the most part, I was trying to keep my ISO low, 100 to 200. And in most of my photos, my aperture was at a f-stop of 5.6. And my shutter speed, I was trying to keep around 60 to 125. So I should probably note that a lot of these photos I edited in Photoshop. Typically I bring them in and add some contrast and saturation. It was especially helpful to do that for some of these photos because a lot of them were, as I mentioned, washed out and could really benefit from introducing some more blacks and adding some more saturation to bring more color to the different photos I took. So as far as some things I've learned about today, I didn't know it was going to be a foggy morning, so I didn't exactly have my camera bag ready to go, but I did have my battery fully charged before I went over there, and I swapped lenses, put a new SD card in, and got in a car and started driving when I remembered, hey, it's foggy out there, it might be a good idea to have my microfiber cloth. So I had to turn around, come back, grab that, head back to the park. And I'm glad I did because between taking different photos, I made it a point to wipe my lens off, thinking that perhaps some condensation would be building up on it. And so I was glad I turned around and picked that up. And the park's only about 5 minutes from my house. If I could do it again, I'd probably have my bag ready to go with all the things I mentioned earlier, but I was waiting for a foggy day like this, and I'm glad that I got one. It's early November here in Georgia, and so the trees for about a week or two are very vibrant, and I'm glad that I was able to catch that moment because the leaves here fall down very quickly. I grew up in upstate New York, and it seemed like fall was a whole season, and the leaves were turning color for weeks on end. Here in Georgia, they turn color for a week or two, and then they're gone, and it's winter. So I'm glad I was able to get out there and take some photographs while the trees were still in color. I did bring a tripod with me. I think that was helpful to have, and I did set a timer on my camera for some of the photos, so I didn't have to worry about the camera jerking as I was holding down on the shutter to prevent any kind of blurriness or distortion to the photo. As I mentioned, I was shooting at a shutter speed of 125, which I think is pretty quick, but I didn't want to take any chances with my hand jerking. A few of the photos I took were handheld as well. I made sure to turn my stabilizer on for those. The stabilizer was off for most of the tripod shots because I've read that if you have it on, that could also introduce some artifacts or distortion to your photos if you have your stabilizer on while it's mounted to the tripod. So something that I noticed as I was taking the photos over the lake today was that as the fog started to lift, things started to become more clear. And I think that makes perfect sense because with fog in the air, you're basically in the middle of a cloud. And so as the fog started to rise, I couldn't quite tell when I was taking photos that they were becoming more clear, but as I was editing them and I was adding things like contrast and saturation, the photos themselves turned out a little better. So if you're taking photos in foggy conditions, just know it may be helpful to hang out wherever you are for a while and just wait for the fog to rise. You could still have some fog, but as it rises, it will get higher up into the trees and your photos would turn out a lot more clear. I've learned today that taking photos in the fog can be challenging. Something that I would love to try out eventually is to be in the mountains and to perhaps take some photos from high up where there is some low-lying fog down below. I think that would be really cool and would love to feature that in a future video. But today I was at ground level. As far as the color setting on my camera, I had it set to cloudy because it was overcast, and I would say probably half my photos were set to autofocus, where the other half I had set to manual. I was zooming in and I adjusted the focus ring to the furthest point across the lake, whether it was a tree or a deck. I would then pull out so I could get a landscape photo. And what kind of lens I was using, I had a 18 to 135 millimeter. I'd say probably most of my photos were shot at 18 millimeters. And the camera I'm using is a Canon 70D. Anyway, that's about it for this video. I thank you for watching, and if you're interested in learning more about Henderson Park, I actually made a vlog there on my other channel that you could check out.